Hello, everyone. Scott Plaza here, and welcome to the very first episode of my St. Louis Cardinals podcast career. The way this show is going to work is that I will simply create episodes as I want to, and that's about it. There are times where I'll have some guests on, and that's what I'm most excited about. The opportunity to talk Cardinals baseball with people like me. That doesn't mean they necessarily have to think like I do, but just be somewhat normal people who love baseball and want to talk about it. These guests will range in number, notoriety, and frequency because, again, I'm going to do this how I want to. And with that, welcome to the very first episode of Cardinals On My Time, presented by I-70 Sports.
I've been thinking about this, Mr. Han. If I'm here and you're here, doesn't that make it our time?
Right, you are Spicoli, and today on Our Time, we are going to discuss the Cardinals' upcoming series against the rival Chicago Cubs. When I say we, I mean that beyond myself, I'll be welcoming the first two guests of the pod. Joining me today will have my brother, Jim Plaza, the eldest of the Plaza boys and an immaculate grid fiend. Jim is coming to us fresh off yet another second place finish with the BGRA White Sox, who dropped the championship game last night. Currently a teacher and varsity softball coach, Jim's favorite topics are Khalil Green's potential and the perfect nature in which Jaime Garcia's hat fits. Joining Jim on the show comes top fantasy baseball commissioner, educator, Cub fan, but all around still a good guy, Steve Reitman. Steve works alongside Jim while also finding the time to make some under-the-radar moves to help push his fantasy team to the top. This episode idea actually comes from a phone call from Steve to me after my squad mollywopped his bozos to reinsert ourselves into the fantasy playoff race. Now, with the upcoming Cubs-Cardinals series, the three of us will recap the seasons to this point, talk about the upcoming series at Busch, and wrap up our expectations for the rest of the season. And with that, let me welcome the first two guests of Cardinals On My Time, Jim and Steve. All right, with that, welcome in Steve and Jim. I appreciate you guys jumping on to be the first ever guests on the inaugural first introductory opening episode of the pod. So thank you guys for coming on. And I want to give you guys this opportunity to introduce yourself. So Steve, I know I gave you quite the intro, but I'll let you kind of jump in wherever it is that you want and talk about your Cubs fandom.
Well, my Cubs fandom's lasted a long time. I'm 56 and seen a lot of pretty bad baseball at Wrigley Field. Although, over the past, several decades, it's been a little bit better. They've had some winning seasons, and obviously the pinnacle was 9 years ago when they won the World Series in 2016. That was a pretty cool time to be a Cub fan. Obviously, there was a lot of people. It was really interesting. I was at Game 6 of the National League Championship Series, and sitting there with one of my lifelong friends, Dave Allen, who was a diehard Cub fan as well. After they won that game, when they turned the double play to end the game, you could see people excited like after a normal game, but really a few minutes afterwards, it was people like kind of hugging each other and weeping, like they just didn't believe like this was ever going to happen in their lifetime. So that was a really cool experience to be in the ballpark when that happened. That's a pretty wonderful moment as a Cub fan. So yeah, Jimmy, you talk. You got it.
All right. Yeah. So I am 38 years old, and I've been a Cardinals fan for most of those years. And people always ask us, we grew up in Chicago-ish area, and people are always like, well, why are you a Cardinals fan if you're in Chicago? Our mom is from Champaign, and it's pretty split, Cubs, Cardinals, and Champaign. But we used to go to St. Louis every summer for a series, and then we go fishing in Missouri, and just kind of became the thing that we did. And obviously Scott's a Cardinals fan. We have a brother, Eric, who's kind of gone stray, I guess, from the rest of the family. He's a Cubs fan, but it's basically been an obsession for a long time. And I would say the Cubs-Cardinals rivalry is one of the things that stresses me out the most in my entire life. I feel like it's hard to express how stressed I get during Cubs-Cardinals series, but I think at the end of the day, it's fun. My wife's a Cubs fan. We met, and actually Steve introduced me to my wife, and she's a Cubs fan, and we actually, when we got married in 2015, we had a baseball themed wedding, and our head table was, I was the Cardinals, she's the Cubs, and then we had people with, their favorite baseball teams, and all the tables were different baseball teams represented. So it's been kind of a fun thing. She and I do like little bets during Cubs Cardinals series. We've, cleaned houses and cars and made dinners and all that kind of stuff. And then Steve's actually got involved in a couple of our bets too. With the one right after we got married, we went to a Cubs Cardinals game, and I could go into a whole thing about it, but Kevin Seacrest basically blew a lead in the 7th inning, and the bet for that game was between me and my wife, who whichever team lost, the other person, whichever team won. I'm not going to spin this well. Whichever team won, the loser had to wear that team's jersey to school. We're both teachers. And I had to wear a Cubs jersey to school. And even to this day, there's a picture of me and Steve with me wearing an Anthony Rizzo jersey at school. And it's still one of the worst memories of my life. I can't, it's awful. No, but I mean, I've been really lucky, I think, in my Cardinals fandom. Most of my life, the Cardinals have been really good. When I was a kid, like in the early 90s, they weren't all that great. But then, with McGuire in the late 90s, and then especially in the 2000s, even to today, the Cardinals have been pretty consistently good every single year. So that's been pretty awesome. And then having seen 2 World Series in 06 and 2011 has been awesome too. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of great memories, but it's definitely been one of the big things in my life is being a Cardinals fan, and the Cubs Cardinals rivalry is a huge thing of that. And having met Steve and being friends with Steve and having that piece in it too, it's been a lot of fun. So yeah.
Yeah, we definitely have 2 passionate fan bases, and especially being in Chicago area, again, not Chicago area, for those coming at us. It's, I'm not going to say it's been tough, because we have been spoiled with the success of the Cardinals, but it's always the same question: why are you a Cardinals fan? And then it was great getting to say like, oh well, at least we've won a title in the last 100 years and things like that. But unfortunately for us, fortunately for the people in our lives, it was 2016 for that. And like Jim, I'm in a split household now with my wife, who is a Cubs fan, and her family is diehard Cubs fans. Her mom was actually working customer relations for the Cubs for the past few seasons as an usher. Her dad's tuned in every game, and her dad's mother and never missed a game, big diehard Cubs fan and all stuff like that. So I mean, it runs deep to the part where me and my wife are buying conflicting onesies and shirts for our children. I give my daughter a Lars Nootbaar shirt, and then I come home a week later and she is in a Pete Crow Armstrong jersey. So it's definitely that thing that it's fun, but like Jim said, it is very stressful. And the series never goes as expected, is kind of what it feels like as this happens. And we were talking a little bit before of all the Darwin Barney games, the Nafi Perez's and things like that should never happen in baseball ever. But because of the way baseball is, that's stuff that's going to happen. And when it's Cubs Cardinals, it's gonna something crazy is gonna happen. I think there was Molina when the ball got stuck to his chest protector. I think that was a Cubs Cardinals series. So there's always something we feel like we've never seen on a baseball field that has the chance of popping up, which we'll see this upcoming weekend. So I just like Jim, Cardinals have kind of been a part of my my life and part of my personality. And being his younger brother, I didn't get to experience the 90s portion of the struggle as much. I was more coming into my baseball world in those 2000s when it was a lot of fun. The MV3, I remember, was just great and fun and just exciting every single time. So with that, now that we've kind of introduced ourselves and how we feel like we are qualified enough to talk about this, and people are going to listen and care about what we have to say, we want to take a pause and look at the seasons at this point. We're past the All-Star break. We're past the trade deadline. So I think at this point we know who the teams are, and whether that's what we expected or whether that's what performing above or below expectations. That's where we would kind of want to see, because up in the Chicago area, I listen to 670 The Score as my sports media, so I get to hear plenty of Cubs talk, plenty of Bears talk and things like that, but I don't get the Cardinals media side of it. So we'll kind of touch on that a little bit, but I want to first touch on with Steve, kind of if you're in the same camp with a lot of the Cubs fans, feeling, this is the team that they should have been. This is the team that should have done something a little bit more. Basically, what do you feel like at this point, sitting here on August 7th with the Cubs, not playing poor baseball by any means, but just the Brewersing. So the Cubs are currently coming into play in this series, 4 games out of the NL Central, but 3.5 games up with the wild card. So, Steve, let me know what you think about the Cubs at this point of the year.
The last couple of weeks have brought a lot of angst among Cub fans because they had a 5 or 6 game lead, and that kind of melted away pretty quickly. But the Cubs are 9-9 since the All-Star break, so this is not a team that has crashed hard by any means. But the Brewers, including the 7 games before the All-Star break, are 21-4 in their last 25 games. I mean, there's a little perspective. I mean, I was born in 1969, and that was the year where everything crashed with the Mets coming and winning the division. And I feel like, at least to some degree, some similarities there. The Brewers are playing out of their heads right now. I mean, 21-4 is crazy. So I don't think the Cubs are playing as well as they need to play, but they have time to get a little bit better. But they are 18 games over 500, with 50 games or so left. That's pretty good. I feel like they made a strategical decision here, and whether it's right or wrong, we're going to find out about. They just decided that they're going to get guys like Assad and Tyon back, and those are the guys that they're going to plug into some of these starting spots. And they were not willing to trade any of their top talent for what would have been probably rentals this year. I mean, I think Sandy Alcantara might have been one of the few that were going to be something that they were going to have beyond this year. And he hasn't pitched well. He didn't pitch well in his last start either. So I'm conflicted, because I would like to see them go for some bigger names, maybe especially in the bullpen too, where they've had some struggles. Palencia has been really good this year, but he's had a couple of rough, tougher outings his last 2. It would have been nice to add a little depth in the bullpen as well. They had Kittredge, who had the immaculate inning Wednesday after the blow-up inning Tuesday. So they just haven't had enough consistency. They rolled the dice with Presley, and that didn't work out. He had a couple of good months maybe in the middle of the year, but he started out poorly and he ended poorly. And he just struggled. So the offense kind of went to sleep for a little while here. I don't know how completely healthy Kyle Tucker is. I look at his at bats and I watch him play, and something just doesn't seem right with him. He's not taking the aggressive stance that he was. He's getting on base because he walks a lot, but he hasn't had those big offensive games that he had earlier in the year. And they're probably going to need some of that if they're, they got a big series. In the next 10 days they play the Brewers 5 at Wrigley, so that's going to mean something. How the hell that goes could dictate how the rest of the division goes. The Brewers really are just playing so well right now that you kind of tip your hat to them. I'm not so much down on the Cubs as you kind of respect the Brewers are just doing what they're doing right now.
Yeah, 21-4. What are you going to do? Former Cardinal alert also with Andrew Kittredge. So shout out to Kit for that immaculate inning. So Steve, you mentioned Kyle Tucker, and I was going to ask you what's your overall take on, number one, the Tucker trade at the time when it was made with the Cam Smith and Paredes deal, and how it's played out, and if you think Tucker is someone they have to pay, or if they should allocate that money to some other polarizing center fielder that might be roving out there at Wrigley.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a big bill at some point down the road for PCA. I think that's coming. They could be smart. They could probably sit down after the season, and he's got a few years of arbitration left, so they have some time to pay him early, give him a decent deal early, and not get he can get a second contract beyond that. I'm a little mixed on the Kyle Tucker thing. I mean, this cool spell is maybe good for the Cubs. Maybe that price is going to come down a little bit. but he's still going to get north of 400 million from somebody. So listen, I still think you look at certain teams that have done well, like the Brewers, for example, that just don't have a huge payroll. You really have to build within your system. They have done a nice job getting some better talent in their system, and some of those have come up, and that's been good. So I'm not kind of sure if I'm going to give Tucker the money. I mean, I might give him an offer, but if he has his heart set somewhere else, now again, he may feel like, well, the Cubs aren't really an all-in team. They didn't go after the big names, and maybe I want to go replace what the bigger names are. I'm not 100% sold that he wants to be here either next year, beyond this year. So I'll make an offer. I think the Cubs would be irresponsible if he didn't make an offer. But am I going to spend $600 million on him? No.
Interesting. I like getting the take out of that because, as soon as the season started, it was extend King Tuck, extend him forever, Wrigley forever. The fans got to make him feel wanted here. But yeah, it's been definitely a cool spell. So that'll be definitely something to watch. And that was part of my deadline watch of, are they going to buy because this might be their only year with Tucker? So that was an interesting way to look at it as well. So Jim, Steve kind of gave his thought on where the Cardinals are or where the Cubs are at this point. Cardinals coming in the season made a grand total of one major league signing and spent chump change $2 million for their major league roster with Phil Maton, who is not even on the team anymore. They told us it was going to be a transition. They said they were going to deal Arenado. Mozeliak said that was priority 1, 2, and 3. Here we are. He's still on the team. They didn't do much, and they are currently sitting at 500, 58-58, coming off of a pretty surprising and gritty win against the Dodgers these last 2 games. So, Jim, tell me what you think about the 58-58 Redbirds at this point.
Yeah, I mean, coming into the season, I was weirdly excited about this team for some reason. I really thought they underperformed the past couple of years, having the roster that they had. I mean, you get Goldschmidt and Arenado on the same team. I mean, they've had some pretty good complementary pieces too over the years. I mean, Tyler O'Neill had the great year a couple of years ago. They've obviously losing Molina a couple of years ago hurt, but they got Wilson Contreras, who's been pretty solid. So it felt like they had pieces, and then they signed Sonny Gray and Andre Palante is surprising last year, and it just felt like they had some things to be excited about this year. And so I know the projections for them weren't all that great this year, and people were like, oh, they're it's a rebuilding year and they're going to trade everyone, and I don't know. I just felt like there was something to look forward to this year, and I think early on in the season we saw that, and I think a lot of guys played about as well as we could have hoped. I mean, Brendan Donovan being an all-star with the way that he was playing. Ivan Herrera, before he got hurt in the first half of the season, was really good. So there were a lot of really exciting things in the early part of the season. I mean, I think I don't think they've come down to earth quite a bit recently with some of the series that they had, and they had a tough series against the Rockies where they lose 2 out of 3. That was tough.
Yeah,
I don't know. I feel like 500 is about where they are as a team right now. I'm the biggest Nolan Arenado fan, I think, in the world, but Scott could probably attest to how excited I was when they were trading for him. But, not being able to trade him, and obviously his no trade clause came into play a lot with that, set them back a little bit. I honestly don't even know what his trade value is at this point. Even in the offseason, this past offseason, I don't know what they could have gotten for him either, if it would have really truly helped reset this franchise in any way. But yeah, I mean, they got expensive veterans. They got Arenado, they got Sonny Gray, Contreras. I love all of them. It's just a matter of what are you going to get for them? I think they basically did exactly what Mozeliak said they were going to do at the trade deadline, which trade the relievers that had expiring contracts. They got prospects. You never can tell with prospects, especially when the guys that they got are, low A, 21, 22-year-old pitchers and position players. It seems like they have 30 upcoming shortstops in the system right now. So I don't know. I mean, they've been intriguing. Like I said, I think they overperformed in the first part of the season to the point where I was like, well, maybe they do have something here. And even right now, they're still 5.5 out of the wild card, but it still very much feels like a couple years ago where they were contending for a little bit, and then you start bringing younger guys up and seeing where they're at. So I think it's disappointing that they're not where we're used to seeing them, but it's also kind of exciting to see where they could go. With Mozeliak leaving after this year and Chaim Bloom coming in, some of the prospects they have potentially coming up. I don't know. So I'm enjoying watching them still. I think it's been fun. Like I said, I wish they would win more. I've never been much of a like a tank for the future type of guy. I'm always like a win now type of fan. So I was even telling Scott, like even during the trade deadline, I'm like, get people, let's win. But I realize that's not how things go. So long-winded answer. I'm enjoying watching them, but I think there's a lot of questions to be answered in the future here, the next year or so, especially. And hopefully they come back to where we've been used to seeing them.
Yeah, the 2023 season for St. Louis was it just felt so weird that there were like there's no way it could happen again in 2024. And like Jim, like you said, coming into the season, you're weirdly excited. Well, they won 83 games last year. The only guys they lost were at that time a league average aging first baseman in Paul Goldschmidt, who they replaced with Wilson Contreras, who I am absolutely in love with as the face of this transition, this energy. I mean, he's tried to start and he's gotten hit 17 times. He's trying to get something, but he's trying to get his pitchers to back him up. But when they all throw 91 miles an hour, it's pretty tough to make a statement with that. But
Can I ask if you've ever thought that Wilson Contreras would be the face of the Cardinals? Because if you had asked me this like 8 years ago,
yeah,
I agree with you. Sorry.
But no, that is something that you would never think that you'd see. But especially with the old way of the Cardinal way of thinking, like that's just the guy that it didn't fit with that of, hey, put your head down and act like you've been there before. But what he's done with this team, I think he's creating that kind of next era, even though, and him not waiving his no trade clause, because I guess it was kind of a backhanded statement, but he's like, I've already won a World Series. I don't need to win another one. I want to be in St. Louis. Like, okay, number one, ouch. Number two, like that's awesome. And you can tell he's had some impact on guys like Victor Scott and Mason Wynn, who I think could build from his energy and that fire. But yeah, the 2025 season, I put a story up today on Viva Alberto's going over the best and worst stretches of the year, and those are exactly what Jim talked about. The April 30th to May 28th, the Cardinals were 20-7 over that stretch. And then this last stretch from June 25th to July 23rd, they were 8-15, getting swept by the Pirates, but not just swept, but shut out in the entire series. And then they also lost 2 out of 3 to the Rockies in that stretch. So I said the kind of good thing is that Mozeliak choose a lane, which even though it was the bare minimum, they did what they needed to do and get rid of those expiring contracts. And Jim, like you said, with what Arenado could have gotten at the deadline, or not at the deadline, at the previous offseason, who knows if it would have reset the franchise. It would have given their one runway plan of Nolan Gorman as the everyday third baseman, but who's to say that we're in any different shape than we are right now, other than getting a clearer answer on what Gorman's future is with the team. So I'm kind of right there with you. Their Vegas win total was 76.5. And I obviously, number one, Cardinal fandom, but number two, I just felt like, again, that team won 83 games last year. I put the over on that, and they're obviously right now at 500, on pace to win 81 and 81. After standing kind of pat at the trade deadline, I ran a poll on Twitter asking if they were going to finish above 500, at 500, or below 500, and the vast majority said that they're going to be below 500, which is very possible, probable. But the question is the pitching. Jim mentioned the prospects coming up. The exciting prospects seem to be on the offensive side. Especially JJ Weatherholt is just so exciting watching him coming up. But the pitching is a question mark. Quinn Matthews did have a phenomenal start today, but he's been very inconsistent. The pitch to contact guys are pitching to a lot of hard contact. But the draft saw a lot of high upside guys with those power fastballs coming in. So it's going to be a fun, maybe not competitive stretch, but it's going to be a fun one to watch, especially as the Central continues to just be a question mark. The Reds are turning around. The Brewers, can they keep doing this? The Cubs, are they going to spend? Are they going to make the moves to take advantage of this Central? And are the Pirates going to just waste away, or are they going to figure something out too? So the Central is going to be a big question mark. And I'd say if there's any time to have a question in the Cardinals' future, why not right now when kind of everybody's in that little spot? So the latest news I'm seeing is everybody's just holding out for the 2027 strike anyway. So that's another story.
Honestly, that's more the reason why Cub fans are a little disappointed too. It's you got to go make this run now because you don't know what's going to happen after 2026. I mean, one group is saying we are going to have a salary cap, and the other group is saying no, you're not. And it doesn't appear to look good right now. And you saw the stuff that was going on in the Phillies clubhouse. There's every reason to believe that they're going to have a very difficult time getting this straightened out. So,
is there any irony to the fact that the Cubs are hosting the 2027 All-Star game?
Yeah, I know. I've had some people poking a little fun at that. So it might be 29, it might be 31. I mean, it hasn't been since 1990, which is a pretty long time, and that was one of the least exciting All-Star games in recent memory. Not only was there rain that night as I was sitting there, but we saw an exciting 2-0 American League victory in Wrigley Field. So I'm hoping the wind's blowing out the next time and we get like 11-9, so we can have a game one of these years.
Well, what was your take on the swing off? I think I'm fully out on a swing off.
I don't love it, but I like ties less. I mean, I just, and there was such a, when that game was in Milwaukee where they had that game, there was a tie. Now that was supposed to, it was settling home field advantage, and that was a little different, I suppose. But I don't like games ending in tie. I know you really can't use other pitchers again, and you don't want to do that. So if the game ends in a tie, it's something a little different. There was talk, let's do this for every major league game. And I don't know what people were thinking when they said that. I love extra innings. I love a long game. I'm in the minority on that, but when I go with people to ball games and 9 innings is over, they're like, "Can we leave?" I'm like, "It's 4-4. We're not going anywhere." I don't love that rule with the runner on second base business. I don't care if the games go a long time. I mean, I think it's kind of fun. Every once in a while, they have one of those marathon games, and you can have them still, but it's much less likely now.
Well, we love those long games to see Travis Wood or Kyle Loesch in the outfield trying to just get through a game. But yeah, as a baseball player, there's times I just want to go home. Especially games that you're not playing, or if you started and you pitched 6 innings and now it's the 16th. Like, I really don't care at this point. Like, we're supposed to do this again tomorrow.
Yeah, I haven't been on that other side. I'm no good at sports, so for me, I'm the guy that sits in the fans and sits in the stands and says, let's play 18. Let's go to the Atlanta game on the 4th of July and watch Rick Camp hit a home run in the 18th. I mean, that's I'm all for that. We can do that every night as far as I'm concerned. But I know for players and stuff, and it's a long season, and especially if it's on a day that you're supposed to be traveling, that can mess up players for a while. So I do understand the idea of not trying to do that. But as a fan, I just love games go on all night. I just love it.
Well, I get that, but I also I love going to bed. So I don't really want to see these extra inning games coming with this upcoming series. Well, look at that transition this weekend. which are all going to be at Busch and are all going to be night games. So Friday, 7:15 on the local network. So FanDuel Sports Midwest for the Cardinals and Marquee Sports for the Cubs. And it's also, I believe, the featured MLB network game for Out of Market. Saturday, 6:15, they are the Fox game. And then Sunday, they are the ESPN game of the week at 6:10 Central. And I was griping with Steve a little bit before we get into this series. I just want to do my little soapbox of I hate national broadcasts, not because of the time. Again, I do love my sleep, but I'll stay up for a Cubs Cardinals night game anytime to watch it. But my gripe with the national broadcast is these guys get to the ballpark that week. When I say these guys, I mean the commentators or the TV crew. And they talk to these guys for 2-3 days, and then they have stories to report. Like, oh, I saw Mason Wynn working in the cage today, and he's trying to hit the ball to right field. Where, like, if you're in the St. Louis media market, they're actually talking about him trying to put the ball in the seats, not try to hit the ball to right field. So it's just, I'm the idea, if you want to grow the market of the each individual sports team, then you got to have somebody who's been with the team talking about it. So before we kind of jump onto that, do you guys want to talk on anything that about the schedule or the ESPN kind of getting rid of MLB after I believe it's after this season as well? Feel free to jump on that before we look at the series as a whole.
Yeah, well, I do agree with you regarding announcers. I really do enjoy listening to my home announcers. They're the people that, that they give us the games all the time, and so I enjoy listening to them. If does a Dodge game, that's at least he's in the team that he announces for all year. But yeah, I agree. Like, you have these guys that come into cities, they don't really know the teams quite as well, obviously. I mean, because they're not with them all the time. They follow them, but it's not quite the same. And they'll do their interviews and things like that. But it does have a feeling that I don't enjoy as much as the local guys.
Yeah, I mean, as a kid, we didn't really have the internet at our house. I mean, like, watching baseball today, I feel is very different than it used to be. But like, I remember being a Cardinals fan in Chicago, you only really saw the Cardinals when they played the Cubs, or like when they did interleague, they played the White Sox, but then again, when they were on national broadcast. So like, I get the announcers piece, but like, for me, it was always cool when the Cardinals were on national broadcast, because then I could actually watch them. Otherwise, I was just watching the game day, like little dots popping up on the screen. I would just sit there and watch those.
In play
But
runs.
yeah, before they said runs, it just said in play. Like, what happened?
Oh, yeah.
No, but like, I did have a soft spot in my heart for like the John Miller, Joe Morgan Sunday Night Baseball, and like that was always cool. But and then even like, I developed a kind of an appreciation. It's weird now that Chip Carey's announcing for the Cardinals, but like, I remember growing up and watching him announcing for the Cubs and being like so annoyed with him, especially like the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire, like home run chase thing. Like, but when I watched the Cardinals, I also had this association with Cubs broadcasters. I mean, like Harry Carey, and then you had Chip Carey, and then even with Len Casper, and up to Boog Shambi now. I got thoughts on Boog Shambi, but like, he's okay. But like, I agree overall. You want to hear your local broadcasters, but I do think there's still a little bit of fun with the national broadcast. I'm a little bummed that ESPN doesn't have the rights, or they not doesn't have the rights. They terminated the contract with it, but mostly because of the nostalgia piece. I think the quality of those broadcasts has kind of gone down over the years. Again, maybe I'm just old man yelling at cloud about it, but no, I did enjoy those broadcasts back in the day, but I think now with just having the streaming and being able to watch your team whenever, like, having those hometown broadcasters is really cool. And even now you can like do the radio with the TV, and I don't know. It's different now, but it's cool.
Absolutely, and then we're out of market for St. Louis. So I always have the thought, and I don't know, Jim, we talked about this. If we lived in St. Louis, would we be Cardinals fans? Because we'd be listening to St. Louis sports talk radio, and if it's anything like Chicago sports talk radio, holy cow, they're either going to win the World Series, or they're never going to win again, or the Bears are going to go undefeated, or they're never going to find their quarterback. But I'm sure a lot of it's the same in St. Louis. But I wasn't a Rams fan. was not a Blues guy, not a Battlehawks guy, so I'm not checking into a St. Louis radio outside of the Cardinals clips anyway. So that's just part of that. And we got to watch plenty of Cubs games because they were on WGN, and like Jim said, that's where you get associated with guys like Chip Carey, who still hasn't figured out how to judge a fly ball, if it's going to be a home run or a pop out to the shortstop. But besides that, all right, let's look at this upcoming series. So we talked about Friday and Saturday. So let's look at the pitching really quick, and then we'll kind of talk about things that we are looking for from both sides. So Friday, we have left-hander Matthew Boyd going against right-hander Michael McGreevy, who was slotted in after the Cubs broke Eric Fedde twice in a month span. Cardinals can't hit a lefty to save their lives, and McGreevy pitches to contact. We love to hear that. Saturday, Cubs Cardinals on Fox. You got Colin Ray versus Andre Palante, which, looking at the numbers, just the baseball card numbers, both sitting ERAs in the mid to low fours, but getting to watch Palante every 5 days, we probably have our own thoughts about what his numbers should look like. So, Steve, I'm very excited to hear what you think about Colin Ray, because after all, he is Colin Ray. And then Sunday, another lefty, because it wouldn't be a Cubs Cardinals series without an annoying soft tossing lefty. So Shota Imanaga, 8-4 with a 3.12 ERA, going against Sonny Gray, who is either going to be the best pitcher in baseball or looking like Miles Michaelis on the mound. So anyway, let's go ahead and look at the series as a whole. Or Steve, anything that you were looking for from the Cubs side, Cardinals side, Wilson Contreras, if that's still even a storyline for you, or anything else?
I don't know if the Contreras thing is really a storyline much anymore. I mean, I think a little time has passed, and I don't really see that as a big storyline going into this weekend. I mean, listen, guys, I'm going to be the first to admit I don't know how the hell Matthew Boyd is doing this. I have no
Thank you. Thank you. Okay.
I'm enjoying every minute of this. I'm waiting, like, when is this going to stop happening? And for the most part, other than a bad start recently, he's been really, really good this year. He's been, in control of a lot of the games. He's getting ahead of hitters. He's done a really good job. Now, he hasn't thrown this many innings, I believe, since like 2019. So, like, this is, you guess you get to wonder with him, and even guys that are not pitching the series like Kate Horton, like, they're throwing a lot more innings than they threw last year in the last couple of years. So there's been some griping among Cub fans, like, well, why'd you pull Boyd with a 3-0 lead the other day, and let him finish if he's hot, throw those numbers out the window and analytics and all that garbage. Just do the eye test and keep him going. I do understand the idea that you have to be a little bit careful with Matthew Boyd's maybe going forward. If he's at 130, I think now. I think his career has like about 180, so he's kind of trending towards having his most career innings in a regular season. They need him in the playoffs because really they don't have, like, he would probably be the number one right now for them in a playoff series if they get there. So he's been really, really good and very much an unexpected surprise. So I would feel like, in that first matchup, that's a game that the Cubs really need to win in order to feel good about where they can go in that series. I would feel like if they lost that game, that could be a problem for the series for them.
And that's all-star Matthew Boyd to you.
That is all-star Matthew Boyd. Listen, I'm surprised by it, but his numbers warranted it. I mean, he did have numbers that were worthy of being an all-star for this year.
Oh, absolutely. And that's a 2-year deal. Is that correct? Okay. All right. So we'll see how that pans out if they start to give him the little Garrett Crochet treatment. But they're also pushing towards that playoff spot. So,
right.
So who knows? Jim, anything you're looking for Friday night with McGreevy on the mound, or just what the offense can do against a lefty?
Yeah, I mean, the Cardinals against lefties. But at least they're not facing Kyle Hendricks, because that was always anytime Kyle Hendricks is like 7 shutout, even when he was like, his ERA was like 8. But yeah, anyway, that's a whole different story. No, I think anytime McGreevy's on the mound now, you're kind of looking to see what he's capable of, because with the whole Eric Fedde thing was going down. And I get it. I get why people were upset with Fedde, but it's like they were clamoring for McGreevy. And I think this is another chance for people to see, what he's capable of and, what kind of starts he can give. And so I'm looking forward to see what he can do there. But then, yeah, I mean, this Cardinals lineup too. I mean, is Nolan Gorman going to hit lefties? Is Mason Wynn? I mean, he's been hitting for average recently, but is the power going to be there? I know, Scott, you were a big like 2020 Mason Wynn guy this year.
Mhm.
We haven't really seen either of those. Like, is he going to hit for power more? Ivan Herrera, is he going to still be one of the top hitters in baseball somehow? There's still storylines in the offense, but I think the biggest one on Friday night's McGreevy for sure, to see what he can give you.
Yeah, I mean, McGreevy, I think he was approaching 400 minor league innings. He needed to be on the big league roster, but Mozeliak comically said we don't have a spot for him. But they were just a healthy team. Like, they hadn't put a single pitcher on the IL until my boy John King strained his oblique or shoulder strain or one of those two things. But yeah, McGreevy's going to be something to watch. But man, with another game against the lefties. I mean, the Cardinals struck out a ton against the Dodgers, and then now they're going to have to face a lefty with some strikeout stuff. Is Gorman going to even get the opportunity to play against him? Is Sajasi going to actually perform? Is he actually going to get playing time? What's the Pedro Pajes, Joel Pozo playing time going to be like? Is Lars Nootbaar going to play against lefties? It sounds like Burleson is locked into his spot, as he should be, I believe, for right now. Walker, what's Jordan Walker going to do? Is he going to get 3 starts against 2 lefties? Or how are they going to divvy up that playing time? So for sure, Friday, I think is going to be more about McGreevy, but also going to tell us what the Cardinals want to do with their lefty bats. All right, Steve, going into Saturday on Fox, Colin Ray 8-5 with a 4.23 ERA, coming off a pretty good year with the Brewers last year, I believe. Is this what you expected? Is the 8-5 misleading? Is the 4.23 misleading, or what do we need to know about Colin Ray?
Well, I think the 8-5 is slightly misleading. The 4.23 is about right. I mean, Colin Ray is kind of what you see is what you get. He's going to give you about 5 innings, going to give up about 3 runs. He generally has kept them in games. He hasn't had too many really bad starts this year, but he's not a guy that you're going to say like this guy's going to give you 6 shutout innings. That's not what I would expect out of Colin Ray. And since that is the one game that the Cardinals in this series are going to be facing a right-hander, I would feel like that's a game I'm a little concerned about for Saturday. I think if they can keep it close. I mean, obviously, if Boyd gives them 7 or 8 innings potentially on Friday, then they have the whole bullpen to kind of use on Saturday. But I do think that's a game that I'm a little concerned about for the Cubs. I feel like Colin Ray might get hit around a little bit on Saturday.
Well, Palante is that pitch to contact guy. So before Jim may jump to you, Steve, what offensively, with McGreevy not being a strikeout guy and Palante not being a strikeout guy, what do you want to see from the offense against these 2 righties who sometimes have trouble finding the zone, but not McGreevy, but Palante has trouble finding the zone, but they throw a lot of hittable pitches.
Well, the Cubs have struck out a lot recently, and they have guys that have struck out a lot this year. Guys like Swanson that just it feels like every other time might be striking out. It's going to be an interesting, kind of a matchup there. It's guys that should be able to put the bat on the ball against. When they've been kind of struggling, I was at the game Tuesday night. They're swinging at pitches that are out of the strike zone a little more frequently than they did at the beginning of the year, and I think they're pressing a little bit. To try and get something started. Now they had a little nicer second half of the game on Wednesday against Andrew Abbott and their bullpen. So maybe they're about to break out of it a little bit. Suzuki is a super example of guys that he hits a really bad patch and then he gets super hot. He's a major streaky guy. So maybe they're going to start to turn around. The Cubs just have to be, when they've been good, they've been patient. And they've had long counts and they've made pitchers work and they've gotten the team's bullpens. And in this slump, they kind of haven't as much. Pitchers have been going a little longer. So I look for them to maybe be a little bit more patient and just put the ball in play and see what can happen that way. I just hope that they cut their strikeouts down at least a little bit. But they are a team that is very reliant on the home run, which is great when it's warm out, but when it gets to be October and it's not, are they going to go into one of those funks that many other Cub postseason teams have, where the ball's not carrying at Wrigley and you're losing games 3-2 or 2-1. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue to kind of emerge as the season goes on. Maybe break out of a slump this weekend. We'll see.
Something our dad would love to hear, either the strikeout or the home run, right there, Jim. So that'll. I mean, the Cardinals have given up plenty of home runs, but it does, and they're not at Wrigley today, so or this week. So we'll see kind of how that's going to turn out. So, Jim, Saturday, Palante, positives, negatives. What is it that you're looking for, or just what are they going to do against Colin Ray?
Yeah, I mean, Palante, I feel like you still don't really know what you have with him. He's shown a lot of promise in terms of just being, like you said, a contact pitch, like pitching to contact and getting the ground balls and things like that. But the downside to that is when he doesn't find the strike zone and then leaves pitches up in the zone, he gets hit hard, and we've seen that happen quite a bit. So, and like Steve said, the Cubs are a big home run hitting team. So if he's leaving those pitches up, if he's not finding the zone and has to come into the middle to start getting back into counts and things like that, it could get ugly really fast. But yeah, I mean, Palante is another one of those guys. You want to see what you have with him long term. I know in the offseason they were talking about, like, do we extend him? Do we, is he part of the rotation for the next couple of years? So I think with the same thing with McGreevy, every time Palante's out there too, you want to see what he's got and what he's going to give you in the future and things like that. Offensively, with the only right-hander they're going to face this weekend, I think that's the chance. Hopefully they can put some runs up. And going back to what you said earlier with some of those guys like Gorman and Jordan Walker, like if they're going to give him this runway that they keep saying they're going to give him, I feel like you have to start him against whoever at this point. It's if you're really not going for a postseason spot and you really want to see what they got, then you got to watch what Jordan Walker can do. You got to watch what Nolan Gorman can do. So JC, you brought up too. It's kind of nice though that they have some of these young guys that you can actually look at, because I feel like some of the Cardinals teams these past couple of years have had like just older guys where you're like, I hope they can keep doing somewhat what they used to. So I mean, we'll see. Like you brought up the catcher situation too. Like what does that balance look like? So yeah, offensively, like what are they going to do against the right-hander? The one right-hander in the series, I think, is going to be a big thing to watch.
Absolutely. And last year with Palante was a good one. It was a pleasant surprise to see him be able to take a rotation spot. And he definitely deserved a look at the rotation again this year, especially with nothing else happening on that rotation front. But he's become more of that innings eater instead of that mid-rotation guy that you're kind of hoping for. When he's bad, it's usually that breaking stuff that's missing. When he can't locate that curveball, it's a struggle. I'm looking at his stats right now. He is, compared to last year, he is just 2/3 of an innings more than last year. So I feel like it's a pretty good sample size to look at. He's allowed double the amount of home runs that he allowed last year, and he struck out 14 less batters while giving up 11 more hits. So he's finding the strike zone a little bit more, and he's getting bit by it. I don't want to call him the Miles Michaelis light, because Michaelis is just not on my good person list at the moment. But Palante putting up a 6-8. I think his 6-8 win-loss is kind of, pitcher win-loss. What does it actually mean? I think he gives you a chance to win. It's when he's really bad with the breaking stuff that it becomes a short start. So like you said, Jim, we need to see what he can do with, he's on pace to get 30 starts this year. I think you pencil him into the rotation next year. And then you kind of build around that. Not saying he's a building block, but he's somebody that what you're going to have hopefully at the end of this year, that you can see what you need to come around him. So that'll be Palante. You really never know what you're going to get. But that makes it always exciting or something, right?
Sure.
All right. That brings us to Sunday, the nightcap. Again, that one is going to be on ESPN. The Cardinals are off Monday. The Cubs are off Monday, and then the Cardinals are staying at home against the Rockies after that. So Sunday, it is Shota Imanaga against Sonny Gray. Shota, I feel like being kind of on the outside, it's been a good or a bad lately. Has that kind of been accurate, Steve?
Yeah, I mean, mostly good. He had a pretty rotten outing against the White Sox. That wasn't real good. He was okay against the Brewers, and then he threw a really nice one the other night against the Reds before Kittredge kind of imploded and they lost that game. He's done a pretty good job, and the Cardinals, like you said, do struggle a little bit against lefties. And as you said earlier, Sonny Gray, it's either Sonny Gray is going to be Cy Gray or he's going to be awful Gray. But it's generally one of the two with him recently. So that could go either way. The series at that point, I believe, in my opinion, will be tied at 1-1. And that'll be a pretty interesting rubber match because if Gray's on, that's going to be a tough one for the Cubs. And if Gray doesn't have his best stuff, the Cubs might hit him and walk it out of there with a series win.
All right, if you had to choose right now, who's winning the series?
I'm going 2-1 Cubs.
2-1 Cubs. All right, Jim, tell me why Sonny Gray is going to save the Sunday for us.
Yeah, like I said, if Sonny Gray's on, he's dominant. I mean, he's got the games that he's done well. He's done very well. I mean, I'm not saying anything you guys haven't already said already, but I don't know. I'm hoping that after a couple of contact pitchers with Palante and McGreevy on Friday, then you get more of the swing and miss type stuff with Sonny Gray. Does that give him a different look? You take advantage of some of the strikeout numbers that the Cubs have been putting up recently. So, I mean, that's kind of what I'm looking for. But Shota Imanaga has always been tough on the Cardinals. When I say always, it's been 2 years, but a year and a half. But no, I mean, you watch him face the Cardinals, and he's lights out. So I feel like Sonny Gray has to match him. I think he's capable of matching him. It's just going to be. I feel like with Sonny Gray too, if he gets off to the good start and he's got that sweeper working, I mean, he's pretty solid. But if that sweeper is not getting guys to chase pitches that aren't strikes, then he starts coming into the zone a little bit more. He's not throwing mid upper 90s anymore. So it's like, what's he going to be like? So I am optimistic, but you never can tell, especially with a lefty pitcher against the Cardinals.
Yeah, that's for sure. I think that's going to be the bigger storyline. I think you're going to expect a good start from Sonny Gray. I'm just looking right now over his last 9 starts. He's walked 4 batters, which is phenomenal. He had that complete game 1 hit shutout against Cleveland, which is rated as probably, I think, one of the best games in baseball history. 9 innings, 1 hit, 11 strikeouts. But then he's been kind of up and down since then. He had back-to-back starts where he allowed 11 hits, then followed that up with an 8-hit start against the Marlins. But then he faced the Dodgers and had another 7-inning, 1 hit, 8 strikeout start. That 1 hit was a home run to Freddie Freeman. But like both of you said, it's which Sonny Gray are we going to get? He kind of complained his last start about it being hot. So he had to work on his changeup a little bit more because he couldn't get really grip on much else. So being August in Bush, we know about that plenty. What's the other weather elements that Sonny Gray is going to have to deal with? But I think the bigger question is going to be the offense with 2 lefties. So Jim, I asked Steve if you had to pick right now, who's winning the series?
I hate to say it, but I feel like the Cubs are winning. It's I hope it's 2-1. I'm just always very pessimistic in Cubs Cardinals series. So maybe that's just maybe not the best person to ask, but I think the Cubs are winning the series.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna still choose my Cardinals winning 2-1. I think there's gonna be something crazy. I will probably throw a bet on at least 1 PCA home run because, of course, that's something that's going to happen. But I know, Jim, you mentioned the 3 home run Reese McGuire game, so there's going to be something out of the ordinary that pops up for something this weekend. So whether that is going to be Colin Ray throwing a complete game shutout, or Jordan Walker putting up a Matt Carpenter-esque 4 home runs and 2 doubles against the Cubs or something like that. But it's going to be a fun one, even if it's an 8-1 game one day. We'll probably still watch it to the 27th or 24th out or whatever it is that the team's going to get. So it's going to be a fun series. Do you guys got any bets on it? Are you trying to stay out of that, or are you Jim, you got anything with your wife, or Steve, you got anything with Jim?
No, we have not made any bet, and I'd be more than happy to make a way. I mean, but he kind of has already admitted that he thinks that it's more likely that the Cubs are going to win this series. And if he wants to, we could do a friendly bet or something like that, or go out to lunch, something simple like that. I'm always
Yeah.
good with that.
I gotta tell you, Steve, it's more just like self-protection. Like I gotta tell myself that they're not gonna win. So then like when they don't, then I'm not like super crushed, Like if I'm like, oh, they're gonna sweep them. So like, I'm down for a bet if you want.
Sure.
It's the little
We could
Peter
do
Lafleur.
a local lunch bet, sometime during the school year.
There
for sure.
There you go. And I will be there to supervise as long as the loser's paying still. But yeah, like Jim said, what are the expectations? Peter Lafleur said, if you don't have expectations, or you don't have goals and you don't reach them, you won't be upset. So if you don't expect the Cardinals to win and they don't win, hey, that's just what we expected. So speaking of expectations, wow, 2 for 2 on these transitions. Speaking of expectations, what are you two looking for the rest of the year? So again, the Cubs are holding on firmly to the wild card spot. Cardinals are trying to stay out of the cellar between the Pirates and the Reds. So Jim, let's start with you this time. What are you going to be looking for the rest of the year for our St. Louis Cardinals?
I mean, like I've said, you got to look to see what the younger guys are going to give you. Some of the guys that keep talking about the runways. I mean, what do you have with Jordan Walker? What do you have with Nolan Gorman? I think those are two huge questions they have to answer because that affects what they're going to do moving forward with some of these prospects and future moves that they make. I think that's going to be huge. I also, to address the elephant in the room too with the Cardinals too, is the attendance has been down the past couple of years too. Like, what are they going to do to get people back in the stands on a consistent basis? Because it's really hard to see that stadium so empty all the time. So I think, as weird as it sounds, I'm going to follow the attendance thing a little bit too, and kind of see like, are people excited about the future of this team? It's really hard to be excited about a team when they sell some pieces at the deadline. But like, what is the kind of general vibe or aura around this team going to be over the next couple of years? Are fans going to be like there for this? Are they going to, especially with the strike coming up too, as you guys talked about earlier, like what is that going to look like? So I think just, what you have on the field, and then kind of what is your fan experience going to be? Because, if more fans are in the stands, then you have more flexibility to sign players and to be more competitive. I know people make fun of the Cardinals, not make fun of it, but the Cardinals are technically a mid-market team, and yet they get, they've gotten bigger free agents in the past, and they still get these competitive balance picks. Like, what is the future of that going to look like too? So I'll be watching that for sure.
The attendance is something that I didn't even really think about touching on, especially with the Cubs-Cardinals series this weekend. Cardinals haven't had a packed house in a while, so it'll be interesting to see, number one, how many people will be there, and number two, what's the blue-red split going to be, not to get political. All right, Steve, what is it that you are looking for the rest of the year for your lovable losers?
Yes, well, I first of all, I do think these games are going to be packed this weekend. I think it's still a great rivalry. It's still a lot of fun, and there'll be a lot of blue coming south this weekend. They travel pretty well, and I think I expect big crowds this weekend. It is distressing, even as a Cub fan, because I do look at this like from a baseball perspective, and really St. Louis is a great baseball city. It always has been, and I think to some degree it's sending a message to the organization that, like, look, the product on the field isn't up to the standard that we want it to be, and let's do something about that before we have more empty seats. I just think it really is such a great baseball town. The rivalry has always been a fun rivalry. So I really do hope, honestly, that the Cardinals, are able to address, and it sounds weird me saying that, because I think baseball is more fun when the Cubs and Cardinals are really good, and that hasn't happened a lot. But when it has, it's been a lot of fun. So I really hope that it's competitive, like that all the time. Going forward for the Cubs this year, it's pretty simple. Like, we have to see, they are bringing back three pretty interesting pieces, in Assad, Tyon, and Miguel Amaya. He's going to be back soon, so that probably means the end of Reese McGuire. So maybe he'll hit us three more homers, and then they'll let him go next week. They'll say, "You've done your job this year." But I think those three. I mean, especially the two pitchers, like they've got to come back and they've got to give the Cubs some really valuable innings the rest of the year. Again, you have guys like Ben Brown who has been really good at times and really awful at others. Cade Horton is throwing more innings than they probably want him to at this pace that he's going at. So whether it is potentially, in my opinion, maybe moving to a 6-man rotation to keep guys fresh for the rest of the year. I think it's what you're going to get from your starting pitching with these other guys that are coming back that are really important. I do think these guys are going to hit again. They kind of took a collective slump since the All-Star break, but that's going to, I really do believe that's going to turn around. They're going to have some more big games before the season's over. So I wouldn't. I'm not saying I'm giving up on the division, but boy, I'll tell you what. If something doesn't change up in Milwaukee, that just feels like they have a lot of things going their way. But if you can hang on to that top spot, you would have home games in the first round, either probably against the Phillies or the Mets, and both those teams would present some very interesting challenges for the Cubs, because when the Phillies are right with their starters, they got a pretty good group there, and they addressed one of their big needs in their bullpen. So the Phillies could be an interesting team in the short series, and even the Mets, who have been very inconsistent this year, they have a core group of guys that are really talented as well. So there's no guarantees, and I think the Cubs are right with really every team in this group. I'm not saying they're the favorites by any means, but I also feel like you can kind of clump these guys, throw the names in a hat and say, okay, yeah, the team I just drew out of the hat, that team could win it as much as anybody else.
Well, Steve, I think I'll quote one of your former faces of your franchises in saying St. Louis is boring. At least that's what I've been told. So, but no, it's definitely, I agree. I think it's going to be packed. I think it's going to be a pretty close 50-50 split. It is going to be an exciting rivalry regardless. I mean, for as bad as us Cardinals fans feel about the team right now, they are 500. So if we're going to get upset about that, I know there's a quote by Bill DeWitt going around saying, 500 in this town is not acceptable. Well, that's where they are right now, and we're learning it's truly not acceptable. So for the rest of the year, it's going to be who's going to take off on their runway and who's going to find their way out of St. Louis. So that the pitching is going to remain a question, but the bullpen is going to be a huge one after trading 3 veterans. They have the Memphis Mafia, or I guess the Memphis Shuttle with the relievers are in full swing. They're claiming guys left and right. But the young offense is going to have to show something to get us a little bit excited. I don't think we're going to see JJ Weatherholt this year. If we do, it's going to be make sure that he can keep his Rookie of the Year eligibility for next year, so that they can get the incentives for him being a finalist or winning the award. So I think really for the Cardinals end, it's going to be, we gotta just not have expectations maybe, and then just watch it happen, and then we'll reconvene after these last 50 games or so. So it's going to be exciting this weekend. It's going to be exciting for the rest of the year. But as we go into this also means that we are starting school next week. For those of you that missed it, all 3 of us are teachers. So rather than prepare for our Youth of America, we are doing the first ever Cardinals On My Time podcast. So with that, I am going to say goodbye for the 3 of us. So thank you, Steve and Jim, for coming on and giving this whole podcast thing a try. I wish I could tell you when you're going to hear us next or me next, but I truly don't know or care to divulge that information right now. But where you can find me outside of here, Twitter and Blue Sky at Mr. Plastastic 17. And if you want to find my current thoughts, articles on the Cardinals, you can find me on redbirdrant.com, Viva Alberto's, and of course, our presenting sponsor, Interstate 70 Sports Media, who is going to be the host of this podcast, and you can find us where all podcasts can be found. Thank you for joining us for the very first episode of Cardinals On My Time.